Because I know one thing we've seen is that certainly here in Australia, there's been a bit of hesitation from our GPs and other physicians who have suggested if you are looking to have children soon, if you are pregnant, then you shouldn't be taking the vaccine. I mean, what's been the scenario over in the UK, for example? Is that a similar situation?
Well, I think pregnant women are encouraged to take the vaccine here. They're sort of like protect yourself, protect your unborn child. And it's very concerning because in this document, there is a category called missing information. So it's what was missing. Yes, exactly. It's what was missing in the original package that was sent to the FDA. And so what I have analysed, what I've done a report on is sort of like an amended version of what Pfizer has given to the FDA. So they sort of include now the missing information, which is to do with pregnancy and lactation. And you have adverse events happening there. You have spontaneous abortions and premature births and neonatal deaths.
Spontaneous abortions. Can you go into that in a bit more detail? So what exactly does that entail? I mean, is this pregnancies that were otherwise completely healthy until this point?
Yes, so it's sort of a pregnant mother having a miscarriage. Yeah, it's very alarming.
And again, is this sort of in that same 24-hour period? What's the period we're looking at for this data set?
I'm actually just going to look at, so for the pregnant... I don't have it. I don't obviously. It's quite a long report I wrote, yes, so I don't have the data specifically for that. But I remember there were about 270 unusual pregnancies, and there were about 25 spontaneous abortions, from what I remember.
Yeah, that's incredible
and
numbers
we're
there.
talking about a 3-month time period here, right?
Yeah.
And as we know, we are coming up to a year, of the vaccine rollout. And it's just really very alarming because they knew about this. They knew about this data, the safety data, and they are literally dragging their feet. They're not wanting to release it. And like I said, we have less than 1% of the actual documentation.
And look, it's one thing as well for Pfizer to be trying to cover their tracks based on a drug that is potentially harmful to the people. It's another thing for the FDA, who has to approve it and suggest that it's safe and effective, to then also be doing the exact same thing. Let's move on a little bit though as well here. We know that myocarditis and pericarditis have been mentioned repeatedly in mainstream media circles as potential adverse events. And that is, of course, by Pfizer and by governments. They're saying it's extremely rare. But based on this initial release, just how rare are these serious issues?
So with this specific report that I analysed, they sort of put myocarditis and pericarditis, which is sort of inflammation of the heart muscle, they put it in the category of immune and autoimmune adverse events. And for both those cases, those adverse events, those heart conditions, you've got about less than 50 recorded cases. So it's not really significant. It doesn't stand out. But we're talking about a 3-month period. But what is alarming is now when you look at VAERS, which is the US Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, and I had the privilege of interviewing Dr. Peter McCullough, who is a leading cardiologist in the US, and he did an analysis using all of the VAERS data, and the amount of cases for myocarditis, pericarditis has just skyrocketed, and it's so alarming, and it's particularly happening in male youth.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of professional footballers recently, for example, having to either retire or having heart attacks. There was Sergio Aguero, of course, the last couple of days, legend for the EPL and obviously playing with Barcelona. He's now retired. Yes, he's had heart problems in the past, but he is one of a long list of people now that are having similar issues as well. We've seen, I think, about 4 in the past month who've had similar issues too. Now, we've also been assured that almost all adverse events have been minor in nature, at least according to Pfizer's documentation, but does the data that you've analysed paint a bit of a different picture from this report?
Yes, it does, because I would say a significant portion of cases are classified as serious cases. And a serious case is one that results in either hospitalization or a life-threatening consequence, like death. So, and you've got a significant portion, like I said, when you look at all these different categories of adverse events that fall into the serious that have high proportion of serious cases, especially in general. There's a category they call general disorders, and that's got a very high percentage of serious cases. So again, these aren't minor. It's very alarming. But then, what is, I say, is shocking is that on the FDA's website, those sort of like the documents or the leaflet that you would get, in order to sort of make an informed consent, like let's look at all the risks. So on their website, you have a fraction of these adverse events being listed, side effects, and this is what's really alarming.
Well, Sonia, just before I let you go, what's the conclusion that you've drawn from this initial release of information, and what would be your message to those who still haven't received a vaccination? Should they consider the Pfizer vaccine?
So I'm pro-choice. It's up to the individual to make up, to do their own research and make their decision. But what I'm really angry about is that there is no informed consent going on, because the general public do not know the whole list of side effects that they can get from taking this experimental mRNA-based vaccine. And especially for the younger age cohorts, where the risks of taking this vaccine overwhelmingly outweigh the benefits. And we're talking about COVID, or this virus, which has an infection mortality rate, if you're under 70, of less than 0.5% your risk of dying. So I just think the risks of taking this vaccine really outweigh any benefit.
Sonia, thank you so much for your time. We've obviously spoken to various points about the report you've put together. If people want to look at the entirety of the document, though, that you've compiled, how can they do that?
So they can go onto Trial Site News and they can search my name, Sonia Elijah, and the article will come up. And I recommend your viewers to subscribe to Trial Site News for very transparent, clinical news what's going on. So it's a great site to get to, for information. And I think people are really hungry for knowing what's really going on.
I think you're 100% right. And just finally, where can we follow you on Twitter and all our social media feeds?
Yes, so people can follow me on Twitter at Sonia_Elijah. And like I said, I write for the Trial Site News, and I also have brand new channels on Brand YouTube and BitChute, and where I do a lot of interviews as well.
Wonderful. Sonia, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your work in uncovering more of this information.
Thank you so much, James, for having me on. Thank you.
That's Sonia Elijah, investigative journalist for Trial Site News. And if you missed any part of that conversation, you can catch the whole chat on our YouTube channel, Cowkine Media. So, of course, don't forget to subscribe. I'm James Preston, signing off for now.